everyone, Laura Mackey here. Today I thought I'd share how you put watermarks on your images via Lightroom. It is so handy and I use it every single time I post a picture to Facebook or Flickr or share it. I always put a watermark on it and it's so easy to do with Lightroom. So let's get started. Up at the top left in the Lightroom menu, you click that and click down to edit watermarks. And it opens up a dialog box. Now what we're going to be doing here, it says Watermark Editor, and that's all we are doing. We are just going to create our watermark and save it for future use in Lightroom. And you can have more than one watermark, by the way. So we're going to learn how to do that, and then I'll show you how you put them on your images. But first we need to create it. So right down here at the bottom, you'll see that this says custom, by the way, up at the top, and that tells you that you're going to be creating a new watermark. Right here, I don't know how it works on your computer, but mine picks up my name from my computer, which is Laura McDonald. But I don't want that. I want to use my Laura Mackey photography name, so I'm going to retype Laura Mackey. Now, you'll see that the default is the lower left corner, but I don't like that size of that, and I certainly don't like the placement either. So we're going to come over to the right, and we're going to edit our watermark in this area over here. The area to the right is broken up into three sections. You'll see image options, text options, and watermark effects. The first section we're not going to do anything with. This area is if you create a watermark in Photoshop and you want to use it and have Lightroom put that on all your images, you can choose your document here. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to use what's within Lightroom to create our watermark. So I'm just going to collapse that so we don't see it. And now we're concerning ourselves with the two remaining boxes, which is text options and watermark effects. The first thing I like to do is come down into the watermark effects area, and I want to position my watermark. I like to use this anchor down here, and you can select any of these little bubbles, and you can see how the watermark moves around based upon which of these bubbles you select. I like the lower middle button best. That's my favorite placement. I also want to increase the size because that's kind of tiny. So I'm going to use the size slider and slide this up just so we can see how that looks right there, and you can pick what you like. And the other thing I'm going to do is reduce its opacity, because there's nothing worse than a watermark that it's so obvious that's all you see and you can't look at the image. You want to be able to see that image, but you want your watermark on there. So somewhere between 60 and 65% I find for most font styles works really well. Speaking of font style, well, before we go to font style, I want to hit this vertical button down here. I'm going to slide this up because I want to move it up a little bit further from the bottom. The default was way down there, and I think it looks better if it's just up just a little bit higher so it's not right on the edge of the image. So you can place that where you want, but I do suggest moving it up just slightly. But now back to the font styles. You can choose up here in text options the type of font you want. This has just picked up a default. I don't know how it chooses a default, but on mine it was Myriad Web Pro. If you click on that, it'll allow you to select another font. Now, unfortunately, you can't preview it until you select it, which is kind of a little bit of a drag. It'd be nice, like in Photoshop, they have the font name and then they have the sample right next to it. But with this, unfortunately, that's not how it is. So we're going to just select another one, and I can show you how it looks when you select a different one. Sometimes, right under the font name, if you click Style, sometimes there are more than one. In this case, the default and the only choice is Normal, so we don't really get to select anything in there. Sometimes it'll be bold or italic or heavy or light, and you can select ones that you like. Just make sure you check that to see if there's something underneath the Style box that you can select. And then you can change the shadow, the drop shadow. Now in this image, I can't really see the drop shadow because there's a black behind the font name or the Laura Mackey. So I'm not going to play with that too much right now, but you can change all this. It's basically, how far the shadow comes away from your font and the angle of the shadow and the opacity of the shadow. So the other thing I wanted to mention is the color. You can change the color right here, up here, we're underneath the font. And I would not play with the alignment at all because I haven't noticed anything. I'm not quite sure how that works, and I've tried it and nothing ever happens. The best way to deal with alignment is way down here at the bottom in the anchor area, and that's where you can select where you want your watermark to be. Now the other thing you can do is instead of just typing it like down here where it says Laura Mackey at the bottom, you can use spaces in between the letters too. So if I do L space A space and keep doing that, you can do that. And I might want to then, since I've done that, change the size because maybe that's just a little bit too big. But sometimes that looks good too. And when you make subtle changes to the font type or the actual whatever you're typing is the text, it can change the position. So you may have to modify the vertical position and the size depending on if you've made any changes. So I think that looks pretty good. Maybe that's just a tiny bit big, so I'm going to just reduce that a little bit. You don't want it to be so oppressive that's the only thing you notice on the image. So I'm kind of liking that. Okay, let's say you're done now. You say, I like that. I want to save that. So you just come to the lower right and click Save. And then it pops up with a box to ask you, what do you want to call this watermark? So I'm going to call it Tutorial Watermark. Oh, and it says the name is already in use. I guess I had one that I practice on. So in that case, I'm just going to give it a new name and just add a 1. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm just going to add a 1 to make a unique name and then click Create. And now Lightroom has saved that watermark and it's ready for me to use. And I'm going to go back up here just to show you that where that watermark is. We haven't put it on images yet. We just saved it. It's waiting for us to use it. But I just want to show you how you can see where they are. You just go to Edit Watermarks again. And then if you click at the top, this drop-down menu, you'll see that, oh, here are all my watermarks available to me. And you can create different watermarks for different things. So you'll see here that there was already a tutorial watermark, so I had to give the new watermark put a 1 after it. So that's the one that we just created. So that is how you save your watermark, and you can see where they are. You can see which ones are available to you. So I'm going to just cancel out of that. Now for putting them on your images. There are 2 ways to do it. One is using File Export. So that's if you want to, obviously you need to create JPEGs for your images because in Lightroom they are not JPEGs. Usually we're working with our raw images and we have to convert that to a JPEG. So a lot of people, they'll click on an image, for instance, and go up here and click File, Export. And then most people have already selected all this, where you want the file to go to. So I have it going to a Downloads directory. I have, in the file settings, I've made sure that I click JPEG. I want it to be a JPEG. I want it to be high quality. I want the color space to be sRGB. And then in the image sizing, let's just say I want the long edge to be 1000 pixels. So that's the longest edge of the image after it's been exported. And in here, I just want copyright only. You can do whatever you like there. There's different options. I chose to use copyright only. And down here, just make sure that you check watermark and that you choose the watermark you want. So, and once you do this once, it'll remember it the next time. So in this case, I'm going to choose the watermark we had created just a minute ago. And now I'm ready to export the image. So I'm going to click Export. And it says, oh, it's already there. That's because I'd already tested it with this picture before. And there is already a watermark. So I'm going to say Use Unique Name. And Lightroom exports it to that directory I had indicated. And now we're going to go look on our computer for that image that had exported to my Downloads directory. Now this is a Mac, so I'm using the Finder. If you're on a PC, you'll use the equivalent, which is, I think it's called File Manager. Navigate to the place that you told Lightroom where to export it, and then you're going to look for that image, and I'll just expand it, and there you can see that Lightroom put that watermark on my image. Pay no attention to this blurry, terrible image. I just used it as an example. So that is, oh, I've got somebody messaging me, so let's just get rid of that really quick. There we go. Now, that is one way to put watermarks on your images, is through the file export. The second way is in your published services. Now, if you don't know what that means, I have a tutorial on published services on my YouTube channel, and you can take a look at that later when you want, when you're ready to learn how to do that. But for those who already do that, the way you get the watermark on your images is you go to your published service, and I have a few of them, and I'm going to use this particular one because it's just a sample, and I'm going to double click on it and open it up. And these are the parameters I have set for anything going to that published services. And I'm going to go down here to the bottom, and I'm going to choose that watermark that we just selected. It can be any one, but usually you'll just have one. In this case, I'm just going to choose the one that we just created, and I'm going to click Save. Now, all those images in that published service, Lightroom is saying, oh, we noticed a change in your published services. Do you want to republish all of these images? And in this case, I'll say yes, because there's only 3. And normally, I probably wouldn't republish if there's 200 images, because I've already posted them somewhere if they're in my published service, and I don't need to redo all those watermarks again. I'm only usually going to change watermarks on images that I take from now on. But in this case, I'm going to select Republish All, because there's only 3 of them. And then it's waiting for me to then now click Publish. So I'm going to click Publish, and Lightroom is now using those parameters in my published service, and it's going to put them onto the directory where I told them to go, and that is right here. And you'll see that up there's my watermark, and there were 3 images, so I'm going to check all of them. Yep, there's one there, and yep, there's one there. So now you know that you can use it for published services as well. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions, please send me an email or click on lauramackie.com and click on the contact button at the top of the menu, and you can send me an email. Thanks a lot, and happy clicking!